This show is part of the RetroZap.com podcast network.
And welcome everybody to another comics edition of the Animanicast. And welcome once again to the Animanicast. This is the only podcast out there that is dedicated to the animated television series Animaniacs. And of course, here we explore each episode one by one. We talk about all the cultural references and gags and things like that that we'd like to. And you know what? We also talk about Pinky and the Brain, Freakazoid, and Tiny Toons. But today, we're talking about another Animaniacs comic book. I am Joey, and joining me once again is my brother, Nathan.
You want to wrestle?
No. Yes, today we are talking about a wrestling edition of the Animaniacs, the Animaniacs comic book. We're also going to be talking about some Animaniacs news about the reboot. But we also have some exclusive little tidbits that we've learned from secret sources. Ooh.
Ooh.
Yes, that's right. And so we'll talk about that a little in just a few minutes. But before we get to the news, Nathan, tell us, this is issue, number 16 of the Animaniacs comic book, right?
Yeah, that sounds right.
All right.
16.
Issue number 16 of the comic book. And, for those of you who, you don't have access to this comic book, there are ways to do it. You can do a little bit of searching online, and you'll most likely find a scan of it pretty easily. However, it is available in online comic book retailers as well. However, if I were you, I don't know if I would necessarily buy this comic book. Nathan, if you were to summarize this issue number 16 of Animaniacs, which, for the record, came out with a cover date of August of 1996, if you were to summarize this in just a few words, what would you say, Nathan?
It's got wrestling and Pinky and the Brain. So if you like wrestling and Pinky and the Brain, yeah,
I would say if you like wrestling and you like monster trucks, then this issue's maybe for you. Maybe even with a little side of Kiss as well. So This is like a very specific demographic that I am not a part of. But I do love Animaniacs.
I don't really fall into any of those spheres necessarily.
No. But it's Animaniacs is involved, so that's a good thing. Well, speaking of Animaniacs, I think before we get into our little discussion of this comic, let's go ahead and talk about some Animaniacs Reboot news. Okay, so Nathan and I and Kelly, we all headed out to San Diego, and we went to go see Animaniacs in concert just a few weeks ago, back in July. We have the whole thing, or not the whole thing, but segments of it recorded, and so you can listen to. Yeah, some highlight reels and stuff that you can listen to on our podcast channel. So make sure you subscribe to go back and listen to that episode just a few weeks ago. But we went in there, or at least I went in there, thinking they've got to give some news for the reboot, right? They got to do something, especially because it was happening right at the same time of San Diego Comic-Con.
Yeah.
But San Diego Comic-Con came and went, and Animaniacs Live came and went, or Animaniacs in Concert, whatever you want to call it, came and went. And we did not hear word one about anything.
No official announcements.
No official announcements, nothing. And it was kind of frustrating because, it's coming out in 2020. So we were kind of thinking like, gosh, when is Warner Brothers going to turn on the promotion for this show? Because I still have people online saying to us, there's a reboot of Animaniacs happening? And even some people there in the crowd, I think, were a little bit surprised when we went to the Animaniacs in concert that there was a reboot happening. So we're going to go through the 5 things that we know about the Animaniacs reboot today. And who knows, a day after this episode hits the air, Warner Brothers might put out a big, giant press release with animation samples and things like that for us all to look at. Maybe a nice trailer or something. But until that happens, this is what we know. And some of these are a little bit of rumors. Some of these are official statements. And some of these are little, leaks that we've been able to get from people that have actually been working on the show, that they've talked to us under strict anonymity.
Yeah, against their NDAs.
Yes, exactly. So
again,
we're not telling you who these people are that told us these things, but let's just say that these people know what they're talking about. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into the 5 things we know about the upcoming reboot. Number 1 is a premiere date. And Hulu, back in 2018, I think it was either in February or January, I think it was January of 2018, first announced that Animaniacs would be coming back on Hulu and for a 2-season run. Very exciting news. And other than saying it was coming out in 2020, didn't really give any firm release date other than that.
Mm-hmm.
However, Rob Paulson did say in an interview for the Boston Metro in 2018 that there would be 26 half-hour episodes, I'm assuming in the first season, maybe in both, which would kind of be a short season, but 13 each perhaps, but 26 episodes coming out, and he said the fall of 2020 in that interview. But we've since learned through some sources that it is actually, at least at this point, scheduled to come out in the summer of 2020. So we won't have to wait quite as long for it.
That's even sooner.
Yeah, that's like 2 or 3 months. So, yay. And that's even sooner than with that in mind, less than a year away from this recording. So why the heck don't they have anything other than a picture at this point and a few paragraphs? I don't understand, but again, officially, not much, but leak-wise, summer of 2020, not the fall. Well, fall the latest. We'll see. Who knows? Well, number 2, and this is perhaps one of the bigger things that we learned really kind of almost
early on.
Yeah, early on. Like about a month later, I would think, about a month or so later, that the show would have a new showrunner. So number 2 is we know that there is a new showrunner, and he is Wellesley Wild. And Nathan, tell us, where would we have known this gentleman's work from? What has he worked on in the past?
Family Guy. I think he was involved in the Ted movies in some sorts. So, along those lines.
Yes. He's been involved in Family Guy-related projects, we'll just say. And, that's fine. That's, I guess, great. But we were, disappointed that, of course, the creator of Animaniacs and the original senior producer of Animaniacs, Tom Ruegger, had not come back to the series. He did express interest and enthusiasm for the possibility of the show coming back, but for reasons unknown to us, he is not working on the show. So, sources have told us, though, that because of Wellesley Wild's involvement, that there is more of an edge to the show. And I believe our source said that, that makes sense because we live in an edgier time these days. And I was like, oh, okay, all right, yeah. But at the time, I thought about it, and I just thought, Animaniacs, I would never consider Animaniacs an edgy series. You look back at the classic series, and educational, sure. A little innuendo sprinkled in here and there with a, a little double entendre wink to the audience is one thing, but edgier, I don't know. What did you think when you heard that, Nathan?
I don't know. I just hope it's not bad. I hope it's good.
Yeah, exactly. So we have no idea what really edgier means. It's just obviously that source's opinion. So we might look at the new series and say, yeah, it's pretty much the same, or we might say, yeah, that feels a lot different. So we'll just have to wait and see what that means. Okay, number 3 is writing and composing. Well, even though Tom Ruegger is not returning to this show as showrunner, we do know that some of the original writers and composers are coming back to the series. One of which, one of our favorite writers, Paul Rugg, actually recently released on his Instagram account that he was actually asked to return. He actually had a few meetings.
Oh, so he's coming back?
No.
Got my hopes all up.
Yeah. Well, Paul Rugg, he basically had a couple meetings with Warner Brothers and...
But here's what I need to tell you. At the end of the day, I decided that I didn't want to be involved because I already did that 25 years ago. I was in at the ground floor. I helped give Yakko, Wakko and Dot their first words, who they are as characters, what they're like. And I wrote a ton of episodes, and I had a great time. But I also feel like everything I wanted to do with those characters, I did. And so when I thought about being involved again, I almost felt like for me to be involved again would be almost like self-parody, and there wouldn't be a lot of discovery. And as most people will tell you, when I'm writing something that doesn't have any discovery or surprises in it for myself, I start feeling like a caged animal. So it's important that new people, new writers, discover these characters and figure out who they are. And here's the truth. If Freakazoid hadn't come along, I probably would have left Animaniacs after having written so many of them. And that's the truth. So here's what I want you to know. I hope that the new Animaniacs Reboot is phenomenally good. I will be watching like everyone else, but for me personally, I would rather be a spectator on this one than a participant. Yeah. Now, if you want to talk about Freakazoid, we could, yeah.
I think Tom Ruegger has said on many occasions that we've talked to him that it was Paul Rugg that really he thinks understood the Warners the most out of any of the writers. So, yeah, it was a disappointment that he decided not to come back for the show to write for it. He did add, however, that if Warner Brothers ever wanted to, do a Freakazoid reboot, that he'd be definitely willing to listen and see what's going on with that, however. Which, yes, please.
Yeah, I would like that.
Yeah, we definitely need a Freakazoid reboot, especially only 2 seasons, and everything is so superhero crazy right now. It seems like the environment is perfect for a superhero parody show.
We need Freakazoid.
Yes, we need a Freakazoid story. Exactly. Well, we do know one other very important figure for Animaniacs is returning, and that is Mr. Randy Rogel. And Randy, what did he do, Nathan, for the series?
He was a composer. He wrote mini songs for, like the nation's... Whoa, Yakko's World, that's what it's called.
Yeah, Yakko's World, and...
That's his first big one.
Yeah.
That's how he got the job.
Yeah, that's how you get the job. You write something like Yakko's World, you're definitely going to get a job. So yes, he's written many of the, some of the most popular songs for Animaniacs. Not all of them. Some people get that a little confused. Mm-hmm. He most certainly did not write all of the songs in Animaniacs, but he did write quite a few. And so he'll be
I would
returning.
say like at least half.
Yeah, I would say it's definitely percentage-wise, it's got to be at least half. But, there are some songs that he did not write, and which are fabulous. So, anyway, Randy's coming back. He, of course, he's kept his relationship with Warner Brothers really strong because he and Rob Paulsen have been, of course, touring for the past few years with Animaniacs in concert. So, really not a huge surprise that he would be coming back for the series. And he's actually, I think they talked about it on the show, that he's already written about 2 or 3 songs for the new series. So we can look forward to hearing those next year. And some of them have already been previewed in Animaniacs in concert.
Most likely, yes.
Yeah, they said it. In fact, it's on our. Yeah, they said it. They said this one should this one be on the reboot, and everyone said yes, and they said okay, we'll do it then.
Well,
there you go. So Randy is back, which is fantastic. And speaking of music, you have to have great orchestration. Steven Spielberg realized this early on with things like Tiny Toon Adventures, and he wanted it to be a lot like the old Looney Tune cartoons. So, full orchestra is coming back, and Steve and Julie Bernstein are back as composers. And because they, along with the late, great Richard Stone, brought a lot of the original music to the show. There's also a couple new songwriters as well, and I'm not really familiar with these two, but this is Roddy Hart and Tommy Riley, both announced on Twitter a few months ago that they would also be writing songs together for the upcoming Animaniacs reboot. So Roddy Hart just said, "So bloody happy." He's from the UK. I should say this was with a British accent. "So bloody happy, chim chimaroo." To share, very perfect British accent, to share the news that Tommy Riley and I are working on a new project, writing songs for the reboot of Steven Spielberg's legendary Animaniacs. Can't wait to let you hear what we've been cooking up with an amazing team, airing 2020 on Hulu via Warner Brothers. There we go. So I didn't really know anything about these guys other than their Twitter bio says songwriter, BBC music presenter, and Tommy Riley, I should say. Apparently they worked together on a film called Anna and the Apocalypse. And they did music for that movie, which, they did the score for that. So other than that, I don't really know much about them other than they did that. So that'll be interesting to have some younger composers in there as well, writing songs and stuff. So again, I seriously doubt that they're writing kind of apocalyptic music, but who knows? So we're getting some folks from the UK involved in this series as well. Well, number 4, we got some more exclusive information here. It comes down to characters. Now, Hulu had already announced that Yakko, Wakko, and Dot would be coming back, along with Pinky and the Brain. And they, in fact, said that they'd be back in every episode. Which, that's good. I mean, Pinky and the Brain, in every episode, they're traditionally one of the best segments of Animaniacs, at least on the original show. But we didn't hear anything about the side characters. Goodfeathers, Slappy Squirrel, and so on.
Mindy and Buttons.
Mindy and Buttons. Yeah, they don't have to come back. They can. However, we have learned through our sources that are close to the production that other characters such as the Goodfeathers and things like that will not be returning. Not even as cameos, which, that hurt when I heard that, because I know they said just Yakko, Wakko, and Dot and Pinky and the Brain, but come on, put Pesto and Squit and Bobby at least in the background, have Squit have a line or two in an episode, just that'll make the fans happy. But no, not even as cameos. And it looks like even fan favorite characters such as Slappy Squirrel may not be returning as well. The closest confirmation of this is about a year ago. We interviewed Sherry Stoner, who of course voiced Slappy Squirrel, the original series. And when we happened to talk to Slappy in that episode, she mentioned that no one's been calling her.
Slappy, you got what's coming up for you? Anything? Any big plans? You got what are you doing?
The dinner. I'm gonna go over to the IHOP and have some flapjacks. Get over there early for the special. And other than that, these days I like to sit and stare at the phone, waiting for it to ring, because nobody's calling me. Nobody. I just sit here.
So Joey and crew, get the word out. Slappy needs some phone calls.
We'll get that going.
Yeah.
We need to see Slappy back on television, I
Yeah, in
think.
2020, right?
In 2020. Slappy in 2020. Let's make the shirts now.
Yeah, that sounds tasty.
So we had to start that Slappy in 2020 hashtag right there. If you search on Slappy in 2020 on Twitter, you're going to find some great artwork from some artists who definitely agree with us that Slappy needs to return for the reboot. I think, and again, I hope I'm not right on this, but I have a suspicion that if Slappy does return, she might be voiced by Tress MacNeille. But again, that is I'm going to call it at this point an unfounded suspicion, and if it does end up being true in a year, I'll tell you the reason why I think that, but not until until it happens or doesn't happen. Anyway, the big news, however, is what, Nathan? What have we found out about characters on Animaniacs?
Maybe some new characters?
Yes. Interesting. Which, okay, sure, new characters are coming to the series. We don't know if these characters are going to have their own segments, kind of like Rita and Runt and stuff like that, but new Animaniacs to be on the show. We also know that there's going to be new segments as well. And we've heard that they're kind of like good idea, bad idea. Maybe there'll be, I don't know if the Wheel of Morality is coming back or not, but we did definitely hear that there are segments that are similar to Good Idea, Bad Idea, but they're not called Good Idea, Bad Idea. They're just similar. So I don't know if that means Mr. Skullhead is in them or not, or if it's maybe one of these new characters are in these new segments. So we'll just we'll have to see. We'll have to see. I'm very curious as to what these new characters look like. I think that's a kind of a gamble whenever you're introducing new characters to a classic. Well, really, it is a classic series at this point, to see whether or not they're going to be accepted by the audience. So that perhaps is the biggest gamble that I think Warner Brothers is taking with this series. Not sure if that was a good idea or not. What do you think, Nathan?
I mean, I'll just have to see what they're like, I guess. I don't know.
Well, number 5. The fifth thing that we're asked about a lot is voice actors. And everyone asks, are the voice actors coming back? And honestly, the chances of them coming back are very, 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 very high. And in fact, we get a suspicion that they all really want to say that yes, they're involved, and they've in fact heavily hinted at it. Both in Animaniacs in concert and in online pictures and videos. For example, back on December 5th of 2018, Maurice LaMarche took a picture of him and Tress and Jess and Rob all together. And he said basically, we can't tell you what we're working on. We really want to, but we can't. we get in a lot of trouble. Something along those lines. And, of course, everyone is going, wonder what that could be.
Mm-hmm.
So, and especially because Rob Paulsen's right front and center holding it, it really just looks like, here's the cast of Animaniacs recording something together. We're really happy and excited, but we can't tell you why we're happy and excited.
Yeah.
We also have the voice actor who is probably lately most famous for voicing Rocco on Rocco's Modern Life. Carlos Alzaraki. I think I pronounced his last name correctly. Maybe I didn't. I'm sorry, Carlos, if I didn't. Anyway, he posted something on Instagram on May 8th where he basically sat down. It shows him at the recording studio with Rob, Jess, and Tress MacNeille all together. And if you listen carefully, Rob Paulsen and Jess Harnell are doing the voices. You know, they sound a lot like Yakko and Wakko in the clip. So let's play that right here.
Hey, everybody. Hey, everybody. This is a dream come true. I won the lottery. I won the contest. I'm with Tress McMurphy, Rob Peterson, and Jess Harwell, and we're recording a show. These guys are awesome.
We love
And
Carlos.
I love Tracy and Peter and Marmel. And thanks, you guys.
All right.
Thank
See
you.
you, Charlie.
Okay, what?
Rob Paulsen also, to add more almost confirmation that they're involved, but yet NDAs are keeping them from saying anything. Rob Paulsen has a biography coming out. Many of you may be familiar with it. It's called Voice Lessons. It is an outstanding book. We've gotten copies of it, and I've been able to I've read mine before going out to Animaniacs in concert, and I got to tell you, folks, it is definitely worth a read. It is going to be a fantastic book, and it's. I talked to Rob Paulsen before the show and said, "There's going to be an audio book, right?" And he confirmed that there would be. So I can't wait even for the audiobook because there's some great conversations that happen between him and his characters, and I just got to hear it. I got to hear it live. So that audiobook is going to be great. Get those Audible subscriptions now while you can. So the last chapter, there's actually an epilogue also, but the last big chapter is called Faith, Kindness, Passion, Humor, and Cheez-Its. There's nothing in this chapter that we could see about that, however, because instead we get kind of a redacted conversation, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Between Pinky and the Brain. So for this, Nathan will be playing the part of Pinky, and I will be playing the part of the Brain as best we can. Because...
Oh, yeah, spot on. So
yeah. So, yeah, we have no idea what this might have to do with Animaniacs, but my guess is something in this chapter has something to do with the reboot. So, Nathan, take it away.
Hey, Brain, is it just me, or does it look like the last chapter is missing from this book?
Why, yes, Pinky. That does appear to be the case.
Well, where did it go then? It didn't just run off the page to get some food pellets.
Pinky, that would be absolutely ridiculous.
Well, gee, I hope this last chapter doesn't get hungry wherever it is. Do you think it's gone forever?
No, Pinky. It's far more likely that this chapter contains confidential information that certain people of power do not want released. Let's try that again. No, Pinky. It's far more likely that this chapter contains confidential information that certain people of power do not want released to the public before publication.
Egad, Brain. They do sound powerful. Maybe they're wizards.
Don't be ridiculous, Pinky. Magic isn't real, only science. Therefore, I can only conclude that they have developed some sort of... Therefore, I can only... Sheesh. Don't be ridiculous, Pinky. Magic isn't real, only science. Therefore, I can only conclude that they have developed some device that has the ability to control knowledge. Imagine what I could do with that power.
Well, I guess I can't read the rest of the chapter now. So what are we going to do tonight, Brain?
We must infiltrate the publishing company obtain this powerful information controlling device and try to take over the world.
What? So the last chapter is about taking over the world?
With the reboot, maybe. I don't know. Honestly, this is a very... So, we shall have to wait until the book is released on October 8th to see what was removed. Yeah, I think that might be... I hope we don't have to wait that long to see whether or not Rob Paulson is involved with the new series. I mean, he's been going on and on, kind of hinting at it, of his involvement. But, of course, non-disclosure agreements, they have a way of getting in the way of, actors confirming whether or not they can be on.
Mm-hmm.
Voice actors especially can be replaced relatively easily. So, yeah, they can't say anything. But, I mean, we all know. We know.
Yeah, we know.
So there it is. There's the 5 things that we know about the Animaniacs reboot. So we'd love to hear your thoughts on all this. You can send them to us by sending them to animanicast@retrozap.com, or simply reach out to us on Twitter, Facebook, or even on Instagram. Or hey, our Discord server, which is, you can get a welcome link by going to discord.animanicast.com, and you can join the RetroZap Discord group and talk to us about what you think about all this Animaniacs reboot news.
Kids WB will be right back. Yup, after these messages. And we hope that you'll be back too.
The kids of the 70s and 80s are all grown up, but the good times of childhood don't have to end.
Our generation can share the fun and fandom of our youth with the next generation and bring the past into the future.
And wrap it all up to make a fantastic present.
Join Jedi Schwa and Chef's Bazaar every Monday morning to get your work week started by reminiscing about the past and exploring the future with your earbuds on Techno Retro Dads.
So find us on iTunes, Facebook, Twitter, or on RetroZap.com. Part of the RetroZap Network.
Recycle!
Don't toss that bottle. Don't toss that can.
We're talking steel, paper, plastic, aluminum, and glass.
Remember to recycle.
Don't toss it in the trash.
The magazine you finish.
The can of soup you strain.
The pickle jar you empty. The carton of milk you drain. The newspaper you roll up. The soda can you smash.
Remember to recycle. Don't toss it in the trash. Don't toss it in the trash.
Don't toss that bottle. Don't toss that can.
We're talking steel, paper, plastic, aluminum, and glass.
Remember to recycle.
Don't toss it in the trash.
Tennis balls and t-shirts.
And jackets can be made
From recycled plastic bottles.
So who wants lemonade?
You can save our planet.
Before our planet chokes.
By recycling your trash.
Just like we recycle jokes. What, do you think we make this stuff up? Don't toss that bottle. And don't toss that can. We're talking steel, paper, plastic, aluminum, and glass.
Remember to recycle. Don't toss it in the trash.
Brought to you by Frito-Lay.
Well, let's go ahead and get into our comic book discussion finally. Issue number 16 of the comic book. And Nathan, before we do, why don't you describe to us what's on this cover of this comic book?
Oh boy. Okay, so I hope you like wrestling. Because, we've got Yakko and Wakko and Dot. Wakko is on a... what are these clotheslines called? I don't know.
The wrestling ropes. The ring ropes.
He's on the ring ropes, of course, as we all know them to be called. He has some weird makeup on. He looks kind of like one of the members of Kiss, I guess, would be what he's going for.
Probably.
I guess. Yeah. Anyways. So it says all out title bout, and it's pulse pounding, fist flying, rip roaring action. Prepare to be blown away. And we have what looks like Hulk Hogan and I guess Mr. T. And yeah, we have Wakko's on the ropes, about to tackle them to jump off the ropes and get him. And Yakko's right below him saying, "When are you gonna play rock and roll all night?" And Dot's giving him a look of "You're such an idiot."
Yes.
But
So, and then, of course, we're going to also feel the fury of 15 tons of monster truck mayhem. And that'll be the Pinky and the Brain part. But yeah, so right there, that's the cover pretty much sets up the first story pretty well, because it's going to be this joke the entire time. So let's get into it. It's called Wrestlemaniacs. So Wrestlemaniacs, which is kind of like WrestleMania. The writers were Dana Curtin and Dan Slott, and the penciler was Walter Carzon. The inker was Cato. The letterer was John Costanza, and colorist was Joe Mignot. And basically in this issue, this story, we have these wrestlers. They're all doing their thing. And into the convention hall comes Yakko, Wakko, and Dot, and they are ready for the Kiss concert. They're dressed up in their Kiss fatigues. They have apparently, given Gene, Stan, what's his name? Gene. Oh gosh, who's the head guy? This shows me how much of a Kiss fan I am. Gene Simmons, that's the guy. Gene Simmons. They've apparently paid Gene a lot of money because they're wearing the platform shoes, and Wakko is even sticking out his tongue a lot like Gene Simmons as well. Well, with that, we're about to get hit on the head, just like a wrestler. The joke, which is they want the wrestlers to sing, and they can't understand why the wrestlers aren't singing. The wrestlers tell them, we're not singers, we're wrestlers. And they go, wrestlers? You mean like rustlers? They think they're rustlers, so they start putting cows through the whole place. And they go, no, we're wrestlers. And I'm going to go through this story pretty quickly, because I'll be honest with you folks, it's not funny. It's the same joke over and over. And I'm not going to bore you with exactly what happens first, second, third, and fourth. I'm just going to basically tell you the very, I guess you could call them the highlights of this. So they have a few bouts with these wrestlers. The first one is a cute off, I believe is what they call it. And it should be noted that this is not the WWF. This is the WWWF. Worldwide Wrestling Federation. But as soon as they do the dot cute off or whatever like that, they whoever was writing this actually put the WWF right there. Whatever, consistency.
It's a lot of W's.
It's enough W's. But the announcer says in the ugliest dimple display ever seen, in this roped ring of mayhem, Dot, the darling damsel of doom, versus Pretty Boy in the WWF cute off. And that guy should have been fired because you got it wrong. It's not, whatever. So Dot has a cute off, and of course she is the winner, as the announcer puts it. The cutie boy, whatever, he just gets knocked out with her cuteness. Her weird cuteness, man. Next up is Yakko and Wakko, and they wrestle the Hulk Hogan, Mr. T-ish combo. The guy who's supposed to look, I guess, like Mr. T, so it's like the Rocky movies, right?
I guess.
Yeah, that's the only connection. He's very overweight, so I don't know. It
might not be Mr. T.
No, but he kind of has a mohawk, so I'm like, I guess it's Mr. T, maybe. Anyway, they wrestle them a little bit. They twist Yakko and Wakko into knots like pretzels, and then Yakko and Wakko put them into balloon animal shapes. Yakko eventually say, oh, they're giving him a half Nelson, a full Nelson, and then Yakko gives the two wrestlers a Ricky Nelson when he starts singing, well, hello, Mary Lou, goodbye, heart, and they keep wanting them to sing. They wring them out to dry like laundry. They do all this stuff. They eventually start getting them to wrestle each other, and the guy says they can't sing. They're It's not in our wrestling script. The announcer shows them their script that they're supposed to do this or that. So they give them new scripts, and they have them try doing Hamlet or some sort of Shakespearean thing. They have them doing a Gone with the Wind parody. They have them doing finally a 22nd Street or whatever that musical's called. 32nd Street? Yeah, whatever. Anyway,
yeah, something like that.
Yeah, it's one of those streets. They all do a little one choking combination. Every little trick he makes. One massive devastation. Each groin pull that he fakes.
That's good.
But finally they go encore. Everyone loves it. And at the end, the last panel is them on the next day at the Kiss concert. And
right. It never even says if it is the next day. It could be
what?
A year from there.
Okay, yeah. Here's the thing. It actually looks, when you read the comic, that all of a sudden they just start doing Kiss, because it doesn't say the next day or next week or whatever. Instead, Dot simply says, if you'd let me keep the tickets, I wouldn't have gotten the nights switched, boys. So whenever that night was switched, they
we
went
could
back.
assume is one after the other, but we don't know.
We don't know. They don't say. We don't say. Maybe they actually did get the wrestlers all to become Kiss members, or maybe they invited the Kiss members in. We don't know. I don't care. Let's just talk about something else. But before we do, Nathan, what did you think about this first story?
I've watched some wrestling recently, and I still didn't really like this. So no, it's fine. I didn't like the whole concept of thinking it's a band, I guess. I don't know. But that was...
Yeah, it's like kind of the Warners aren't that dumb. They just kind of just kept pushing it. And I just don't... it wasn't funny. And it just went on and on and on and on. I kept thinking, like, a lot of these comic books we've read have usually not just 2 stories. They usually have 3. And that's kind of nice because it's tighter. You get the story, you get the jokes, you get the concept, and you move on.
Yeah, you get the best. Because there were some funny parts of it, like them saying, we're going to meet your maker, and they say, Steven? And it's like, it's a Steven Spielberg.
That's not true.
I know. It's Tom Ruger. Tom?
That would have been even more obscure, though. But I can't blame them for not putting Steven in there, but or for putting Steven, I should say, in there. But whatever. Tom, and then the kid audience would go, "Who's Tom?"
And then
read the credits, kids.
In the panel, they explain the joke for the audience. It'd be great. That's what they want.
Yeah.
I found out who the pretty boy is.
Yeah, who's this pretty boy guy?
It's a young Shawn Michaels, most likely.
Oh, okay.
Because he was a pretty wrestler.
All right. Yeah, I as a kid, my friends really liked wrestling. They really liked the WWF, and I know a lot of our listeners really like wrestling as well. I mean, it has its own big following in a lot of ways. Like at Comic-Cons now, they'll have like half the celebrities that go to a lot of these Comic-Cons are wrestlers. They're in a lot of ways sort of like we talked about last week about soap operas and superheroes, and wrestlers are all kind of like, they have these stories to them, and so in a way they have a popularity. People know these stories with these characters that these people have. So yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter if it's like it's contact. It's real contact sport, but like it is planned out. But like so is the Marvel movies, and so
yeah, exactly. So whatever it is, like for example, I always tell kids at my school, like, oh, why do you like Star Wars so much? And I'll tell them why I like Star Wars, and I say, do you like Star Wars? And they'll say no. I say, well, what do you?
Fake.
Yeah. So, well, what do you like? Well, I like football because of this and this. I go, great. That is your Star Wars then. That is the thing that you like a lot. You're passionate about. And there's nothing wrong with liking wrestling or anything like that. It's just not my thing, So
You can only have so many things.
Exactly. I know. That's what I tell people who you should watch Harry Potter. I'm like, no, I got Star Wars and Animaniacs, and there's only so much time I can invest my brain in having. Anyway, there was that comic, and it's about the same quality as perhaps Hulk Hogan's movie No Holds Barred. So, or maybe a little worse. I'm not quite sure. Anyway, let's go ahead and get into our next and final comic of the day, and that is called The Mean Green Monster Brain Machine. The Mean Green Monster Brain Machine was written by Jesse Leone McCann, no relation to John McCann, by the way. Pencils were by Walter Carzon, inks by Mike DiCarlo, letters by John Costanza, and colors by Joe Mignot. And Nathan, why don't you tell us what happens here in The Mean Green Monster Brain Machine?
Yay! So we have a Pinky and the Brain cartoon, and Brain wants to try to take over the world, but Pinky's busy watching TV. He's actually just watching commercials, which he apparently likes. But Brain's idea this time is to take $2 from every person's bank account and put it into his Swiss bank account, making him the richest person in the world. Which I don't know if that would even be true nowadays, but anyways,
I will say that is actually the most. He goes into whole explanation of taking money and making Swiss bank accounts and stuff, and I'm like, this is actually a plan that makes a little bit more sense than the typical Pinky and the Brain plan.
Yeah, I was like, this isn't like we're gonna stop the Earth's rotation and everyone goes floating into space, which I'm like wrong on so many levels.
But in this case, it's just we are going to get a lot of money. It's like, okay, I gotcha.
But yeah, so I was like, this makes sense. But then he's like, okay, all we need though is a laser big enough to shoot to all the satellites around the Earth, so that it can send the signal to my Swiss bank account. And then, but he's like, we just have to figure out how to do it. And then Pinky is off watching the TV again. Then Brain's getting upset, but then he hears on the TV it's a monster truck ad, and they say at the end, make sure you stay for the giant laser show with the world's largest laser or something, wait a second, we need a laser is what he's thinking. He's like, hey, Pinky, are you pondering what I'm pondering? And, Pinky doesn't say the same thing. He's thinking of something else. He's saying, I think so, Brain, but if I put on 2 tutus, would I really be wearing a 4x4? So
that is a good joke.
It's good.
If a ballerina wears 2 tutus, they are wearing a 4x4. That's good. That's comedy, ladies and gentlemen.
Anyways, his idea is to, enter the monster truck rally. If all he needs to do is get to the laser, he could also just buy a ticket for $15. It's pretty cheap.
No, these are the big laser. You don't need these monster truck rallies. They have huge laser machines.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, you can get into the thing with only $15. But his idea is to actually enter into the competition as a monster truck rally contestant. And, wouldn't you know it, there's an old truck in the backyard of their lab.
Just sitting.
Are they in a jail cell? They're looking through the window.
The Acme Labs gets moved around a lot depending on the time and the place of the story. So in this case, it looks like perhaps some hillbilly has them locked up in his lab, perhaps, because in the back it's just a junkyard and there's an old truck in the back. You look out through the window, and there are bars to the window.
Bars. There's no glass on the window.
Yeah, so maybe they are in a jail. I'm not exactly sure what's going on, but so they go fix up this truck.
Yeah, they're like, we'll just fix this up, and Brain starts hitching it up without loosening the tires first, which you're supposed to do that before you jack it up. And Pinky points this out to him. He's reading the book, and Brain's like, "There's no time for that. That's just silly safety." And then the whole truck falls on him.
Ooh.
So if you're going to change your tire, make sure you loosen the nuts first, kids. That's it. And then, surprisingly, short time later, it's all fixed up, and now it's a different color even. It looks like a real monster truck, even though before it looked
red. They painted it. They got it, they spent another day painting. Oh, yeah. And by the way, you can see in that shot, the the Acme Labs from behind with the bars in the windows, and it has like smokestacks of I don't know what is going on with this pink
places.
Acme Labs does look weird. Okay, go ahead.
It's a very different Acme Labs.
Yeah.
Brain will be the driver. He's made a special seat so he can sit upright to the wheel, and Pinky will be controlling the pedals, so he'll be stopping and going. Whenever Brain says go, he'll go. Whenever he says stop, he'll stop. But the problem is, Brain keeps saying things that either have go in the sentence or sound like go and says stop, and then so he keeps slamming on the brakes and slamming on the pedal, and finally they get there. Even though Brain's been flying across the whole thing, it's
a pretty good bit, by the way.
It's a little funny bit.
It's a stop go, and he's slamming into the windshield, and it does have a very kinetic feel to it, despite it just being some drawings. It reminded me a lot of the moment in Wakko's Wish, where the Brain is telling Pinky to just stop it, all that stuff, and they just stop pedaling and they would fall and
don't listen to anything I say. Yeah,
he's like, oh, okay, yeah. So a lot like that bit, but different enough that I was like, okay, that's cute.
So they finally get to the Acme Speedway, which is where the monster truck will be, and then the guy's like, hey, I don't have you as contestants. Are you new entries? And then he's like, actually, we're lab mice and take over the world. And he's like, very funny. Go on through. So no one ever cares.
No one cares.
So they make it in, and then they meet the other contestants, and one of them is named Sebulba, I think, because he is mean and he likes to tamper with other people's machines before they race.
Doesn't look like Sebulba.
No, he
definitely acts like him.
This is a Star Wars reference, if people are wondering.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's someone out there who's like, what? So he's going around and he starts like messing up everyone's things, and then he's about to do the same with Pinky and the Brains, but he looks inside and Pinky's covered in goo and stuff, and Brain's trying to clean him up, and he's like, oh, it looks like you have trouble enough as it is. Good luck. You're gonna need it, losers, kind of stuff like that. And he's not very nice at all. So the race starts, and what they have to do is they climb over like 35 cars or something, the fastest, and the person that gets to the end wins. So the Pinky starts going, and he's going too fast. His pedal is stuck because he's been eating all this cotton candy and things that he got from the monster truck rally, and they can't stop. But luckily, Brain is actually smart in this or something. He's like, oh, I can use my intelligence to stay on course, which is fun. And he manages not to die, even though they're like flopping over, they're bouncing upside down and everything, but they're staying on the same path that they should be. But it looks like they're gonna win. But then the bad guy, Sebulba or whatever, uses his flames, just like Sebulba. Does he have flames? I can't remember.
Yeah, Sebulba has flame jets. Yes.
Okay. I was like that. I know he did.
I don't think he did.
Video game.
They mentioned. Okay, Star Wars discussion sidebar. Anakin mentions Sebulba's flame jets in episode 1, but you do not see them unless you play the video game. In which case, yes, you can turn on Sebulba's flame jets, and they're a lot of fun to use.
They don't really do much of anything in the video game,
but they're cool. They're fun to use.
They're fun to use. I think if you're really good, you can maybe set someone's engine on fire. But you have to be neck and neck with them for so long. Yeah. Anyways, this is a fun game. So they end up tying because the other guy uses nitro jets. I guess it's more like Fast and the Furious. They use those all the time.
Yeah.
But so they tie, and there's going to be a sudden death match where it's basically King of the Hill. Whoever can get to the top of this mountain of cars first wins. But Sebulba, being himself again, has punctured their tires and let all the air out. So before they can race, they have to put some more air in. So Brain tells Pinky to do that. Pinky goes off and gets what turns out to be a helium tank, and fills that up fills the tires with that. And so they're racing up, and Pinky and the Brain aren't having any issues going up this hill. They're just kind of flying up. It's simple. And the other guy, can't get there, and he falls down and it crashes to the bottom. And
that was a lot of helium.
Yeah, it must have been, because they're still floating up, past the top, so they have to jump out of the monster truck as it's raising in the air. So that was close. And then they got first prize, so they're getting a trophy, and they're right up next to the laser, so Brain's able to hook up his it's like a pager, I guess. I don't know what.
So the laser machine, yeah. He puts his little machine to the laser machine. Everything's going great.
Yeah, and Pinky's asking, hey, what do you think's going to happen to our monster truck? And it's like, oh, well, after a time, the helium will dissipate, and eventually the truck will... And then the next panel says fall, and it's crashed on them already. So it had a lot of helium, but it lost a lot of helium really quickly somehow.
Yeah.
I don't know how that was possible.
Maybe there was like holes in there was, he let air out of the tires. Maybe the holes came back.
And it looks like his laser wasn't able to finish transmitting to his Swiss bank account because he says, oh no. And then it's all cracked and broken. And, then back at the lab, they, I don't know if this is the same day. How did you feel about this? Because it didn't make sense to me. I guess it could be.
It was later. Just later. They were watching the highlights. They were watching, I guess maybe, it had to be the next day because Monster Truck shows are usually in the evening, right? Perhaps. And so they're watching the next day the highlights of the monster truck, and they show the brain in pain.
Yeah. So Pinky says like, oh look, they're showing highlights from us, and he's like, sorry, turn that off, Pinky. I've got to get ready for tomorrow night. But then on the TV he's saying, tomorrow night I'm going to take over the world. So I'm like, is he not doing what he?
Oh, that's why you didn't know what.
That's why I was wondering. It was like
it's tomorrow. It's tomorrow. Well, try to take over the world by planning for it for the next day. It could be a week later, perhaps. I don't know.
And also, he was crushed by a vehicle just a second
ago.
He
needed a day or two to recoup.
And he wasn't in his, right facilities to know what he needed or what.
Yeah, exactly. But all in all, it was a much better comic than the first one that we happened to see. So, even though I'm not a fan of monster trucks, I did like this comic story. Nathan, I didn't see any really references to anything, just some cool stuff. Were there any particular parts that you really liked? I, for one, liked the fact that Pinky was most interested in getting sticky, things to eat at the place. That was cute because it all played a part into the plot.
Yeah, I got sticky stuff all over the bad guy's hands, which was funny. I guess there's a reference to Bugs Bunny. If you don't know who Bugs Bunny is.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to look for any references to anything.
Yeah, just anything. They mentioned Bugs Bunny. But all in all, it's a good story. I mean, it's good art. It felt like, okay, I could see this becoming a real cartoon for the actual series.
And it's like actually a good idea. Like it's an idea that makes sense. Like I like that. I like the idea of taking over the world that Brain has.
Yeah,
it's fun
with actual lasers and things like that. This is how people really take over the world. And the darn 1%. Oh yeah. Yoy. Well, anyway, let's go ahead and get to our water tower rating. What do you think, Nathan? Out of 5 water towers, how many would you give this comic book?
I'll just say 3, I guess. It was a pretty good Pinky and the Brain, and I'm not a huge fan of wrestling, but maybe if someone was a big fan of wrestling, they might like this more. I don't know. So 3 water towers.
All right. Well, I know last week I talked about how you're, more mathematical with these ratings, and I'm more emotional, but in this case I'm going to be totally mathematical. I did not like the first story at all. I wish I never read it. It was not a funny story at all. It wasn't funny, and I don't care if it's about wrestling. I don't care. I just want it to be funny, and instead it just went on forever, and every panel just wasn't funny. It was a lot of stupid slapstick and not a lot of verbal wit. So yeah, I'm going to say no stars for the first section. 5. I'm going to go ahead and why not give the second one 5 just out of mercy. And so that averages to 2.5. for the entire comic. 2.5 for me. If you check it out, just skip the first part unless you like wrestling and Kiss, and in which case maybe you'll like the first half.
Yeah.
Maybe. All right, well, let's go to get to some contact information. Nathan, where can people reach you online?
Oh, Joey, I'm on Twitter. JangoFT, that's me.
All right, and as for the Animanicast, we're on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. And of course, we're part of the Retro Zap Podcast Network. You should subscribe to the Retro Zap Podcast links on your favorite podcast player, whatever that happens to be. You can subscribe to that, and you can listen to every Retro Zap podcast, including this one right here. And after you do that, hey, why not stop on over to the Retro Zap Discord group by going to discord.animanicast.com, and that'll give you the welcome link so you can join the fun over there and talk to all the different podcasts from the Retro Zap Network. So whether you want to talk about Star Wars, or you want to talk about superheroes, or video games, or action figures, or more Star Wars, it's all over there. Or of course Animaniacs and cartoons. It's all over there at the Retro Zap Discord server. So join us, won't you? Well, that'll do it for today's episode. So for Nathan and Kelly, who will be back with us next week with a Tiny Toons episode, this is Joey saying, good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
This podcast is not endorsed by Warner Brothers or Amblin Entertainment and is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Animaniacs, Tiny Toon Adventures, Freakazoid, the Warner Brothers logo, all names, pictures, and sounds are registered trademarks and or copyrights of their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of the Animanicast unless otherwise indicated.